Okay, guys, is the voice audible now? Is the voice audible now? Yes, guys, please confirm, is the voice audible? Can you hear me? Okay. So, guys, apologies for the little bit glitch that came. The voice was not audible. I hope that the voice is audible now. So, guys, welcome to the idea that is the in-depth editorial analysis. In this particular video, we are going to discuss in a lot of details about all the editorials that has come in most important newspapers today, that is the Hindustan Times, Business Line, India's Express, as well as the Times of India. So today we are going to discuss these four articles that had come. Now all these particular articles are relevant. For example, the article 1 is relevant for GS paper number 3, article 2 is relevant for GS paper number 3 again, GS2, GS2. As we will be proceeding, more we will be seeing about these particular articles. Now, moving on to the first article from the Hindustan Times. Now, guys, this particular article provides that how by utilizing the CSR, that is the corporate social responsibility funds, the rural livelihood and rural development can be carried. And a very beautiful idea has been given in this entire article. Now, let's discuss is this. Now, first of all, guys, when we talk about the CSR, corporate social responsibility, let's understand that what is the simplified meaning of the corporate social responsibility and the CSR funds. So basically, whenever a corporate is doing any economic activity, any business activity, the corporate essentially is using the resources of society. And as resources of society are being used, corporate has a responsibility that corporate has to pay back to society. And this responsibility is called as corporate social responsibility. So as the part of a CSR, corporate has to mandatorily contribute a part of their profits, which will be going for social justice programs, health initiatives, education, and all such kind of things. Now, when we talk about India, in India, corporate social responsibility has been made mandatory since 2014. Why? Because in 2014, there was an amendment that was made and the Companies Act 2013 came. And as per the section 135 of the Companies Act, it has been provided that the firms, they have to mandatorily invest as at least 2% of their net profits as CSR. This particular money will be going for the eradication of certain disease, for environmental conservation, for education, and all such kind of things the money can be invested. Now, we see this particular thing that a lot of money is getting collected under the CSR. And in this particular direction, there are certain other initiatives also that has been launched by the government. Now, first of all, guys, there is a social stock exchange under SEBI, that is the Securities Exchange Board of India. Now, this social stock exchange, what it does, it gives a detailed framework. Okay, it gives a detailed framework of the entities, not for profit organizations. Now, understand this particular thing. When we talk about the NGOs, non-governmental organization, they can play a very important role in developing and in providing the last mile benefit to the poor and vulnerable people. So basically, corporate social responsive the companies, the corporates through the CSR can bring the development, and for that particular thing they can choose the NGOs. And for that particular thing, the social stock exchange has been created where the information sharing can be done, and corporates can choose such kind of an NPOs for delivering the development. Okay, now many of the countries such as United Kingdom, Canada, Brazil, they are having their own SSEs, social stock exchange, which are providing the information about these worthy NGOs that can be used by the corporates. Now, understand this particular thing. It is a kind of a bourse which is meant to serve the private and non-profit sector to help to raise the funds. Now, what is a bourse? Bourse is an organization, or it is a platform where the money can be raised, or a kind of a stock market. Understand this particular thing, that right now what has happened, there is a lot of tightening that has happened under Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, FCRA. And because of this particular thing, it is very difficult for the NGOs to raise the money from the overseas market. So therefore many of the NGOs funding has actually dried. So what the NGOs can do, NGO can take the excess of money from the corporate, which corporate have to contribute as a part of a CSR, and it can be a win-win situation. Corporates will be able to fulfill their obligation, and the NGOs will get the funding. So this is something which can be done. Now, in this particular direction, guys, it has been provided that what can be the initiatives that can be taken by the corporates to further enhance the efficiency of the money that they are spending for the CSR. Now, here the reference has been given about the Antyodaya survey. Now, Antyodaya survey has been released by the government, which provides the information about 143 parameters and the funding gaps that are identified into the rural India. For example, let's say there is a village A. Now, this particular village A might have a problem that clean water is not available. And clean water is not available because the money for laying down the pipe network is not there. Let's say village number B is having a problem that the schools don't have proper benches. Village number C, other kind of a problem. So what can be done? The corporate firms, they can take the information from the Antyodaya survey and can find basically they can see the feeder villages in their areas, that what type of infrastructural gaps are there. For example, let's say a corporate is operating out of Meerut. A corporate is operating out of Meerut. So the corporate can find that in the vicinity of the Meerut, what are the funding challenges that the villages are facing, and for that particular thing the corporate can spend the money. Is it clear or not? So this is something that can be done, and for that thing the village gram panchayat development can be done, and it will also reduce the duplication of the efforts. Okay, then the next suggestion that has been there, that CSR projects should be designed in taking the local government and community into the confidence. Many number of times the local people are not being considered. Okay, they are not being asked that what kind of development they need. Okay, so they should be taken in confidence. The next thing that comes here is that local studies must be done to understand the governance challenges, okay, in a particular area. The key requirement of the local people. For example, in some area the people will be needing food, some area people might need education, some area people might need health. So whatever the challenges are there in the particular area, on that particular thing, CSR funding should be invested. Moreover, corporates can also work as an evidence, they can also work as an evidence based voice for the decentralized community. What do we mean by this evidence based voice? Corporates can take certain actions, can judge that whether the money that they have spent, is that money effective, whether some positive benefit is coming out of that particular thing or not. So on the basis of the evidence, the community actions can be taken up. Then further moving on, the next suggestion that has been given in this particular article is that the corporate specifically needs to focus on women led development. Even the government has now taken that government's motto is Nari Shakti. So in that particular thing, women led development can be taken up. Now understand this particular thing. Corporate should focus that how by using their fund they can enhance women's labor force participation rate. When we talk about the women's labor force participation rate, it has hovered around 25% and it got stagnated here. And in this particular direction, we have multiple datas, okay, from the ILO particularly, periodic labor force survey, we find that around one fourth is the female labor force participation rate. It is highly unsatisfactory. So therefore, such a kind of employment generation programs can be done. Now, we find this particular thing that the Ujjwala gas connections have been given to the women by the government, and because of that particular thing many of the women now have the spare time. Earlier they have to go to the forest or to other places to collect the firewood, but now they have a lot of spare time, and in this particular time they can explore the diverse livelihood opportunities. So the opportunities for livelihood should be created at local level. Next thing that comes in this direction is that we also need to invest in strengthening the information technology. Direct benefit transfer, fine, is needed to be given by the government also to the women into the women's bank account, so that they become financially more empowered. Okay, a strong network of women banking correspondents can be created. Okay, now who are the banking correspondents? They are the people who will reach to the rural people, will tell them about the banking products that are there. They will help them in opening the bank account, operating the bank account. So the women banking correspondents can also be empowered. Then next thing that is coming is that the companies can take the women apprentice. For the apprentice job, the women can be taken up. By this particular thing, the skill development of the women will also happen. Women can also be included into the skill development programs even. Then next issue that comes here is that Basically, women can also be organized in a kind of a self-help group. They can be organized in a kind of a kind of an enterprise of their own. Today, when in India, we find this thing that there are 90 million women find in the rural as well as urban India who have formed the collectives, who have formed the women-led enterprises. Now, to form such collectives, women need monetary support, they need another kind of professional support, they need the knowledge support. So here also the corporates can step in between and can provide the professional support, the subsidies to such kind of women collectives. Now, we have certain successful case studies also. For example, the Rural Livelihood Mission and the National Dairy Developmental Board in the Madhya Pradesh have come together. Madhya Pradesh, Bihar have come together and they have provided the livelihood opportunities to thousands and thousands of women. Moreover, there are the Buddha Fellows who are working in these particular states and are providing the help to the women that how they can organize themselves in collectives and enterprises. Okay, so the professional help to women collectives have been given and the Buddha Fellows have provided this particular thing that how it is empowering and far reaching. Then next focus of corporate social, basically the CSR spending should be on this particular thing that how they can do the human development. Now, understand this particular thing. When we talk about the human development, there is a lot of deficits in many of the human capital. Basically, the in the human capabilities, there are the many limitations. For example, human capabilities can be enhanced by education, but education is missing. Their capabilities can be enhanced by skilling, but the skilling opportunities are missing. Okay, that particular thing is there, so we can identify such kind of an arenas and investment can be done. Now, understand this particular thing that in India there are primary deficits in housing, okay, sanitation, bank accounts are not there, gas, electricity, roads, women collectives, all these things are missing. Now all these things particular should be focused, and by that particular thing, at the end of the day, human development will come. How? Because if there will be the proper housing, proper sanitation, proper bank account, for example, if proper housing and sanitation is there, it will be instrumental onto the human people's health. Okay, bank accounts will provide the economic opportunities, and at the end of the day, humans will be able to explore their fullest potential. Then next thing that comes in this particular direction is that partnerships needs to be carried for the social protection programs. Okay, weak and marginalized people, they are needed to be specifically focused, and for that particular thing, the partnership with the NGOs and other organizations need to be carried out. Now, here, if there is one more suggestion is being given that the corporates, they should be asked to furnish business responsibility and social reporting. Now, what is this business responsibility and social reporting? This will be a kind of a report card in which the corporates will be providing that what CSR money they have spent, where they have spent, and what is the impact of that particular spending. Now that particular report can be taken by the investors, and investors can see that how compliant a corporate is on environment, social, and governance parameters. Now, understand this particular word ESG, environmental, social, and governance parameter. It has become a very, very important parameter by the in has become a very important parameters. The investors actually see that how environmentally responsible, socially responsible, and govern onto the governance parameters a corporate is fit. Okay, so this is something that can be taken up. So these are, guys, the recommendations that how the CSR spending can be made much more effective. Okay, so these particular points can directly be used in your GS paper number 3 answers. I hope, guys, that you have understood it, and now we'll be moving to the next article. Now, the next article has been taken from the business line. Now, the article says the state of India's industrial policy. The state of India's industrial policy. Now, this particular article has been taken from the business line. And in this particular article, guys, we are actually going to see that how the India's industrial policy can be formed, how it can be rectified, fine, so that we become a manufacturing economy. Okay. Now, this particular article will be important for GS paper number 3. Now, before moving on, let's take if there are certain doubts in this particular, if there are certain doubts. Okay. Fine. So we see this particular thing that okay, okay, so there is some comment with respect to the 2022 wrapped challenge result. Okay, so you will be the people who have attempted the wrapped challenge, they will get a notification via the email, and by the email you will be able to know that. Okay. Now, the state of India's industrial policy. This particular article we are going to see with respect to the GS paper number 3. Now understand this particular thing. Basically, India had taken up the Make in India program. Now, when we talk about the Make in India program is particularly focused that how India's in the India's GDP, how the share of manufacturing can be enhanced to 25%. Right now, when we talk about the share of manufacturing in GDP, it hovers around 17 to 18%. But we need to increase it to at least 25%, and that is the goal of Make in India. But for that particular thing, we need a robust industrial policy. Now, when we talk about industrial policy is the set of interventions which government carries to extract the maximum economic performance from a firm. So rather than giving the firms just the subsidies and keeping the firms dependent onto the subsidies, the government comes out a kind of with an overarching industrial policy. Find policy support is given so that they can perform at their peak performance. When we talk about the India is aspiring to be a developmental state. India is even aspiring to be an economic superpower by 2047. And for that particular thing, we need to have a robust industrial policy. We have the examples of East Asian economies, fine, who have seen a lot of economic benefit, particularly because of the transformation of the industrial landscape that they have done. Post 1950, post 1950, many of the Eastern Asian economies, they got reformed. Why they got reformed? Only because they have a better industrial policy. Is it clear or not? So in this particular direction, India also needed to take certain lessons. Now, it has been provided that today it is very much important that the state has to direct the capital towards the productive enterprises. Specific support is to be given to the firms that are performance oriented. Now, first of all, let's understand that what are the issues in India right now which are plaguing the industrial policy. What are the challenges with respect to the industrial policy in India? Number one, we find that there are the macro perspectives, and then there are also the micro challenges that we have. First of all, the key issue here is that we need to incentivize, we need to support, we need to handhold the firms towards achieving the performance targets. Now understand this particular thing. The firms have to be given specific targets that okay, you have to achieve this much, you have to achieve this much turnover, you have to achieve this much production target. Okay, so these targets have to be given, and only by this particular way the firms will be able to contribute into the overall economic growth. Then second thing that is being talked about here is that basically we need to see that the firms which are good performing, better performing, they are to be provided more performance targets, they are to be provided more of a subsidies, they are needed to be provided incentives and concessions. Okay, now this is something that can be done. Moreover guys, at the same time, the state, the government also has very important responsibility. Two very important responsibilities of the state or the government is there. Number one, facilitate the economic performance. Facilitate the economic performance. Government has to provide infrastructure. Government has to provide the ecosystem so that the firms can thrive. Now understand this particular thing guys, that actually even till today there is no one single platform on which a business owner or an investor can find out the total number of compliances that are required across the ministry. Today, if any business owner has to start the business, he has to scroll at least 40 to 15 different departments' websites to know all the compliances that are there. So basically, such kind of things need to be eased. A better ease of doing business has to be given by the government. Okay, so the economic performances facilitation is to be done, and at the same time, the stakeholders, we need to discipline the stakeholders towards the goals of the industrial policy. So whatever industrial policy is having a goal, we need to nudge the manufacturers, industries towards that particular common goal. So this is something that the government has to take forward. Then next is that there are the micro implementation challenges that also we are having. Now, basically, there are the multiple stakeholders in a state and everybody's interest is not aligned together. For example, three most important stakeholders that we have is the government, capital, and labor. Now they have their own interest and many number of times their interest might not be aligned. For example, government's interest is of welfare, capital's interest might be of profitability, and labor's welfare is about getting at least minimum wages. Now if the labor wants better wages, then the capital might, the industrialist might not be happy with that particular thing. If the industrialists are going for the profit maximization and in that particular thing societal welfare they are not looking, government will not be happy. So multiple stakeholders are there in a state and industrial policy should be such where all these three can come together and can align their interest. Next thing that's coming, next thing that's coming in this particular direction is that we need to establish the mechanism by which economic performances can be achieved. Fine, provide the subsidies, provide the concessions. Okay, this is something, this is there. Now guys, understand there is one more issue that has actually been there and in practical life it has been observed. See, suppose you say that okay, the firm which will be more performing, we will give them subsidies, will give them the benefit. Suppose a firm has been performer and this particular firm has been given the subsidies and benefit. If this particular thing has been given, this is something. However, if the firm becomes underperformer, we will withdraw all the subsidies that we have given. But actually, in reality, this becomes a difficult. We can give subsidies, we can give concessions, but withdrawing them, it becomes very much difficult. So this is a very big challenge in the all the countries that have been there. After that, what issues are needed? What is to be done? We need to first of all establish an institutional setup. This particular institutional setup will be able to perform many number of functions onto the industrial policy front. For example, this institutional setup will monitor the projects, fine, infrastructure projects, developmental projects. It will map the performance of the targets. For example, the firms have been given certain performance targets. It will see that whether these targets are being achieved or not. It will release the subsidies contingent on achieving these performance targets. So I told you that upon achieving the performance targets, concessions will be given. So those things will also be carried by this institutional setup. Then the cases of the project defaulting. Okay, wherever a firm has taken some kind of a government benefit and have not performed on the conditionalities that were expected out of that, in such kind of a things, the project defaults will be identified. Okay, and if there is the financial exposure to the exchequer, suppose a firm is going bankrupt. Let's say a firm has taken some loan from the bank and now the firm is not able to service that particular loan and the firm might go bankrupt. So how that particular impact can be minimized? Is it clear or not? So how the exposure on the exchequer can be minimized? Then further understanding this particular thing, that as we talk about all these particular functions, find they in themselves are very important elements. They have within them there are other elements that are there. Okay, now actually taking a follow up on this particular entire thing is very much important, but at the same time it also constrains the state's ability. Now in India there are multiple challenges are there. For example, to perform all these functions, capacity is not there. Secondly, when we talk about the Indian federalism, we know this thing that there is a separation of subjects also that has happened between the center and state. State has certain subjects, center has certain subjects, and many number of times center and the state are not at the same page. For this particular thing, achieving the challenges of the national industrial policy becomes very much difficult, particularly when the states are being ruled by some other political party. There, achieving this particular kind of a synergy becomes even more problematic. Fine. Now, moving on in this particular direction, guys. After that, here there are certain steps that can be given for the improvement. Now what steps can be given for the improvement? Number one, we find this particular thing that the states, we find this particular thing that the states which have the highest contribution to overall economic growth, to overall national economy, These are the states which themselves have registered the most of the growth. For example, Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, Gujarat, Karnataka. These states, first of all, their state growth rates are very high, and at the same time these are exactly the states who have contributed into the national growth, into the output, national output. They have the biggest contribution. Fine. In this particular regard, multiple steps can be taken up. Now let's understand that what steps can be taken up. Number one, guys, we need to design the industrial policies at the level of the state, rather than having a national industrial policy which is applied on all the states. Rather than having the one size fit all mechanism, we need to design at the level of states. For example, there is Tamil Nadu, suppose there is a Kerala, there is Maharashtra. Now Tamil Nadu might be having some of their own challenges, they might have some of their own prospects. Kerala might have different challenges, so therefore the state specific industrial policy should be designed. Then this particular thing would require the revamp of the present institutional setup. Is it clear or not? Now guys, when we talk about the present institutional setup, they are inclined towards a national policy, but we need to change that. Fine. Then further moving on, after that it has been provided that we also need to have the robust institutional mechanism which can work on multiple fronts. For example, which can reduce the turnaround times and the time limits. Okay. For example, guys, uh, in terms of industries, they have to deal with many departments, they have to deal with many of the ministries. Moreover, implementing an industrial policy also is the work which spans across the multiple departments. Certain clearances are to be given by environmental, ministry of environment. Central pollution control board has to given certain clearances. Okay, so basically this institution will make sure that a seamless coordination is there. Okay, and turnaround time with respect to clearances can be reduced. Implementation of the industrial policy can be made more effective. This institution is going to take care for that particular thing. After that, there comes the as we talk about this particular body, this body can be formed by the name of a SIPA, that is a State Industrial Policy Authority. The State Industrial Policy Authority will be an overarching authority, will have the jurisdiction on all the aspects of the industrial policy design, industrial policy implementation. All the aspects will be seen by the SIPA in every state. So this is going to be an empowered institution. Moreover, it has been provided that what are the main areas in which the SIPA is going to perform. So it will majorly be performing the three functions. There will be the three key elements within the SIPA. Number one, there will be a planning authority. Now, planning authority majorly will be doing all the planning with respect to the industrial policy design and all such kind of a thing. Then there will be the nodal agencies. Now, nodal agencies will from time to time will be communicating with the different stakeholders that what is the industrial policy's goal, what is the industrial policy's vision. All these particular things will be communicated to all the stakeholders by this nodal agencies. And then there will be an organizational structure. In this particular organizational structure, there will be the departments which has the necessary skill set to facilitate the performance of the firms. Okay, how they can fulfill, how they can perform to their peak capabilities. To retrieve that particular performance, the organizational structure and their bodies are going to work on this particular dimension. So basically, guys, it has been provided. Moreover, at the same times, okay, the states which have been laggards in economic performance, means the states which have not been good performing in the past. Fine, they should also be given a specific and dedicated focus. And government at the multiple levels need to assume the responsibility for coordination and to ensure the discipline amongst the different stakeholders. So this is going to be the overarching plan by which the industrial policy of the India in the 21st century, in the present time, is to be designed. Okay, so guys, this is a very very important article. And as we talk about the LPG reforms, okay, in 1991 the LPG reforms were carried. In 2021, okay, the 30-year anniversary have happened. So even now, basically, the industrialization, industrial policy, these topics become very much relevant and could be asked in the examination. Okay, so that is all, guys, about this particular article. And now we'll be moving to the next article. So this article has been taken from the Indian Express newspaper. The article says the sovereign undermined. And this article which is actually talking about the critical evaluation of draft data bill. Now, before going in this particular article, let's talk about little bit of a background that you should know first, and then we'll go in this particular article. So basically, guys, the Supreme Court, a minute. So basically, Supreme Court in the Puttaswamy case, Supreme Court in the Puttaswamy case declared that right to privacy is a fundamental right. And in this particular direction, right to privacy is a fundamental right emanating out of article number 21. And in this particular direction, government was asked that government has to protect the privacy of the citizens. And therefore, what happened as a follow-up of the Puttaswamy judgment, government constituted B.N. Shri Krishna Committee. It constituted B.N. Shri Krishna Committee. Now, this B.N. Shri Krishna Committee suggested the personal data protection framework. This personal data protection framework was the personal data protection framework bill was actually introduced, and in this particular bill, government was advised that how government needs to protect the personal digital data of the citizens. Okay, government came out with the personal data protection bill on the basis of the personal data protection framework that was earlier suggested by the B N Shri Krishna committee. This bill got introduced into the parliament. Fine. However, the bill did not got passed for nearly 3 years, and therefore few months back, that is in the 2022 itself, few months back, the personal data protection bill was withdrawn by the government, and government said that in few months time we will come out with the new version of the data bill. And now the new draft data bill has been introduced. Is it clear or not? So this is something that has happened. Now guys, before this is something that has happened, and now we are going to see that what this particular article talks about the core provisions of the bill and what critical analysis is being given. Before moving, I would take some of the doubts if they are there. Okay. Will CSR come under GS4? Understand this thing, in GS paper number 4, corporate ethics are mentioned. So under the corporate ethics, there are the many issues which are there, which are the issues, for example, how corporates are leading to many violations on environmental front, etc. That is something more important. But yes, for GS4 number also, you can see CSR to a limited extent. Okay. Which time the class is conducted? Class is conducted at 7 p.m. Delhi. Telangana state has given better ease of doing business. Yes, Telangana and Telangana and even the Andhra Pradesh has worked very well on this particular thing. Okay. Regular class will be at 7 p.m. Okay, fine. Moving on. Okay. Now, when we talk about this particular draft data bill that has been announced, okay, before going in this particular thing, guys, there is one more development that has been mentioned in this particular article, and I will briefly be telling you about this particular development as well. Article says that now government or India is democratizing the e-commerce as well. Fine. Now, for the e-commerce's democratization, already if you have followed the Saturday's class, we have seen government has come out with the ONDC. Fine. ONDC. Now, under the ONDC, what will be done? A common platform will be created, and on this particular common platform, all the e-commerce players' products will be featured. That is something happening. Moreover, on the digital landscape, India is also participating in the Industrial Revolution 4.0. Okay. When we talk about the first industrial revolution, it came on the basis of the coal power. Second industrial revolution, when we talk about it, it came onto the basis of the electricity. Okay. Then third industrial revolution, it came onto the basis of IT revolution that came in 1990. And the fourth industrial revolution is now starting up. Fourth industrial revolution will be characterized by the self-driving cars, artificial intelligence, machine to machine communication. And understand this particular thing, artificial intelligence, okay, machine learning, machine to machine communication. In all these particular things, the data is going to be very important. When we talk about, guys, the artificial intelligence, it can work only on the basis of the data, the big data that is fed. Now understand, today the citizens are generating the data, digital data footprints at unprecedented rates. Today we find this particular thing, that all the time while you are onto the internet, you are leaving the digital footprints. In this particular capacity, how India is ready in this particular direction? Is it ready or not? What are the challenges? We are going to see this particular thing. India needs to take the control of the data and the information that is emerging out of the Indian consumers, and that particular data we need to process through artificial intelligence. That particular data is to be fed in IoT, internet of things, robotics, and all such kind of things. Now the article further suggests this particular thing, that recently the fresh draft of digital personal data protection bill has been released by the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. Now, first of all, what are the positives of this particular bill? Number one, this particular bill is crisp, to the point, and easy to read. Moreover, the government has provided that the comprehensibility for the common citizen is the government's most important priority. Secondly, this particular bill has very clearly defined on important and basic things. For example, who can process the data, who can process the data, who is the data fiduciary. By the way, data fiduciary is an organization body which will be the data fiduciary is an organization which is having your data. Is it clear or not? That is the data fiduciary. So who can process data, who will be the data fiduciaries, what will be the legal obligations of the different stakeholders who are holding your data? These things are being provided. It doesn't gets into the issues such as critical data, non crucial data. The next thing, there are very simple definition of the personal data and non-personal data. Now let's understand that what is the meaning of the personal and non-personal data. Personal data is that particular data which is attributed to the identity of any person. For example, my name, my name, my address, my date of birth, okay, my fingerprints, all these are my personal data because they are attached to my own identity. But at the same time, there can also be the non-personal data. Non-personal data is that particular data which is not connected with any person's identity. For example, the traffic on a particular road during the peak hours. Okay, that is the non-personal data. For example, the number of flights that are landing onto the Delhi airport every hour. That is the non-personal data. The weather data, that is the non-personal data. So the difference between personal and the non-personal data has been explained very clearly and very lucidly in this particular bill. Next thing, next thing, the new draft fine is neither the copy or the adaptation of the Anglo-Saxon laws. Anglo-Saxon laws means the British laws. It is not just the copy of the European laws. For example, for the European Union, there is the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR. So the GDPR, it is the European Union's law onto the data protection. It is not just the copy and paste of that. It has taken in consideration the social considerations of India. Not it, nor it is just the copy paste of the Cloud Act. Okay, it is based onto the India's unique requirements. Then understand, in this particular bill there are certain issues also that are there. What are the issues? Number one issue is that the quantums of penalties have been fixed. For example, up to 500 crore rupees penalty can be imposed on the corporate if the corporate has not followed the data protection. For example, let's say the meta, okay, or let's say the Facebook has a lot of your personal data, but that particular data has not been protected as per the provisions of this particular bill. So therefore 500 crore rupees penalty can be imposed. Now globally we don't follow this particular kind of a thing. Globally the penalties are enforced as a percentage of the global revenue. Suppose suppose the Google has done some data breach, and Google's revenue, global revenue is, let's say, 10,000 crore rupees. Okay. Then in proportion of this particular revenue, the penalties have to be imposed. So more the revenue, more the penalty. So just fixing a higher limit, ceiling limit, is not something which is appreciated. Then next thing that is coming here is that there is no clarity on the role and the structure of data protection board. So there will be the data protection board which is going to implement this particular bill. But whether it will be a regulator, whether it will be adjudicator, what will be the composition, what will be the eligibility, how it will act, how it will function independently. These particular kind of things have not been provided very clearly. Then next issue that comes in this particular bill is that basically data localization issue has not been addressed properly. What we understand by data localization, first of all? So basically, data localization provides this particular thing, that the data which is being collected from a particular territory, that data is needed to be stored in the local servers only. Fine. For example, you are scrolling the Amazon, and on Amazon you are generating a lot of data. Now that particular data is stored somewhere in physical servers, but these physical servers might not be in India. So data localization provides that the physical data should be brought. Okay. Now in this particular bill, the word sovereign is missing from the text of this particular bill. Okay. Basically, government has provided. I'll tell you a little bit more briefly. Fine. In the article is not given in that detail, but let's understand this particular thing. Government has, in this particular bill, it has been provided that strict data localization has not to be followed. Why? Because whenever we follow the strict data localization, it impacts the ease of doing business. It impacts the ease of doing business. So strict data localization has not been followed. Free flow of the data in other countries can be allowed by the government, but it has not been very clearly provided that what are the conditions under which the free flow of the data will be allowed. The word sovereign is missing from the text. Okay, this is something that is there. Moreover, that bill is too much focused on individuals privacy. Just a minute. Yes. So the bill is, or the draft appears far too focused on individuals' privacy issue, personal data. But what about the non-personal data? What about the non-personal data? How the non-personal data will be treated, how it will be processed, that is something which is not being discussed. Though personal data is important, it should be given importance, but what about non-personal data? It is not there. Moreover, it has also been provided that what are the obligations of data fiduciary. Okay, what are the obligations of data fiduciary once the data moves to the foreign shores, foreign countries? That has not been very clearly provided. Who is a data fiduciary? I already told you. Data fiduciary is an organization which is holding your data. Now, if let's say the Amazon is taking that particular data physically to the US, okay, or some other kind of a country, so what will be the responsibilities? Not clear. Then moving on. After that, guys, it has also been provided that right now Industrial Revolution 4.0 is coming. We cannot afford that there are few global corporations such as the Google, Facebook, etc., which has accumulated a lot of data. They are accumulating the data through ethical means as well as through the unethical means also. They are accumulating a lot of data, but their data cannot be just be made as their own commodity. Okay, many number of times they use the data and they try to manipulate the minds of the consumer. Fine. Big data companies, search engines, geo mapping players, all are using the data to maximize their own profits. They're manipulating the people. So therefore, we need to put certain provisions in this particular bill that how their accountability can be enforced. We are clueless how they use this particular data, what products are being made out of that. So therefore, data nationalism and data localization are something which should have been given more importance in this particular bill. In the past, India has actually resisted the multiple attempts by the developed countries at the international fora to bring the seamless flow of data. Okay, to allow the seamless flow of the data. Okay, now understand this thing that the big tech companies, they are actually based out of the developed world only. For example, the big tech is based out of the USA. They want that data localization should not be there, and they had imposed that particular thing. India has tried to resist it, but now we have diluted. Okay, free flow of the data, that is from the developing countries to the developed country, will create the asymmetric relations into the. Now understand this thing that the data is the new oil. So tomorrow, if more data is consolidated only into the developed countries, it will create the asymmetries. In this particular direction, there is also the United Nation Conference on Trade and Development, UNCTED. It has the Trade and Development Report of 2018, which says that it is important for the countries to control their own data and to use their particular data to regulate the data flow. It's very important. So therefore, this particular thing should have been added. Is it clear? India needs to assert the sovereign right over the non-personal data as well, personal data as well. This is something which should have been discussed. In this particular direction, basically, specifically the chapter 4 of the draft bill, which is dealing with the transfer of data outside. Now, on this particular bill also brings might also bring many other issues also. Basically, guys, we are negotiating with the US, European Union, UK, the free trade agreements. Now, when the free trade agreements are being discussed, in these free trade agreements, the data treatment, that is also a very important thing. Now, basically, when we talk about the transfer of the data outside, and when very clear conditions, clear grounds are not provided that how it will be treated, this particular thing might bring many of the issues. So therefore, we now need to make sure that the data is needed to be treated more sensitively, because it is the currency of the fourth industrial revolution. Okay, so that is all, guys, about this particular article. And after this, we will be now be moving to the next article taken from the Times of India newspaper, that is the passport to justice. Can AI, artificial intelligence, help in cutting the pendencies dramatically? Okay, this particular article will see with respect to the GS paper number 2, judicial reforms. GS paper number 2, judicial reforms. Now, before moving on, let's take certain doubts if they are there. Okay, so here we have Pooja. Priyanka says, sir, please provide questions for practice. Okay, Priyanka, I'll try to provide it. All these articles will published on December 19, or it is a collection of last 1 week published ones. Okay, Shrija, these articles are published in the today's newspaper. So these articles are from the today's newspaper. Okay. Um, Sir, too many questions for mains practice, not able to complete the syllabus. What should be the answer writing strategy? 2 questions per day is enough. Yes, 2 questions per day is enough. And but before attempting the question, I will even suggest you that you should first focus on completing the basics. Okay. Now, moving on. So basically, when we talk about the Indian courts, guys, understand that there is a huge of logjam, huge pendencies into the Indian courts. Nearly 5 crore cases are pending at the different levels of the courts. Now, we can actually effectively utilize that technology to bring down the high pendency that's there. In this particular context, it has been provided that already fourth industrial revolution is coming. We have discussed it into the previous article also. And in the fourth industrial revolution, there is a very important pillar of artificial intelligence that is there. Now, artificial intelligence can actually be used in the legal system to reduce the pendencies. This is something that we need to focus. Now, understand that when there are the pending cases, these pending cases actually build the judicial logjam. The pending cases, they build the judicial logjam. And because of this particular judicial logjam, often the poor people, they get suffered disproportionately. So fast tracking this particular system will provide the benefit to all, including the poor people also. Today, the current logjam that has there, it seems many number of times that resolving the cases is hopeless. According to a one report, it is provided that it will take nearly 444 years, 444 years to clear the backlog, and it gives a kind of a hopelessness that there is any possibility of reform in India's judicial processes. So therefore, artificial intelligence can come in between. Here, there is one example that has been given, that how one of an organization has used the technology and has actually made the processes very seamless. We have example of passport office. So just 1 decade back, passport office used to give a lot of nightmares to the people. Getting a passport made was a kind of a nightmare. But today, in the passport offices, in the passport seva kendras, the process has been made so seamless that today these organizations, passport seva kendras, are one of the most efficiently run organizations. Today, the passport officer's role is just approving or rejecting the passport. Okay, other processes, filing for the passport, all these kind of things have been digitized. So today the software systems are existing which can help even the judge to basically the which can help the judges also, and a lot of time can be saved. For example, guys, today the entire court complex can be digitized. There can be the digital filing of the cases, digital scheduling of the cases, prioritizing of the cases can be done digitally. All these particular thing can be done digitally. Right now, all these things are done manually, and it is wasting a lot of time. Now, in this particular direction, a case study from the Argentina has been given. So basically, Argentina has developed a software by the name of the Prometea. Now, the Prometheus software of the Argentina has been developed by the University of Buenos Aires. However, not needed to go too much into the detail. Now, this particular software is implemented into the courts across the Argentina. It has been even been implemented into the Inter-American Court on the Human Rights, and which is actually having the jurisdiction, which is actually Inter-American Court onto the Human Rights. Fine, which is actually working actively with 25 countries. It has been applicable. Moreover, the Constitutional Court of Colombia, as well as the various courts in the Argentina, are using the Prometheus software. Now, let's understand that what is this Prometheus software and at how it has helped in reducing the backlog and how artificial intelligence is effective here. First of all, it has been analyzed by the United Nations, Organization of American States, University of Oxford, University of Milan that it is effective in reducing the pendency. Now, number one, number one component of this particular software is a talkable, user-friendly interface with the natural language processor. Now, understand this particular thing. The clerks, the clerks or the judge, the clerks or the judge can use this particular talkable interface to give certain commands. Certain works are to be done, certain, for example, typing work is to be done, certain query is to be searched onto the Google, some database is to be searched. Is it clear? Some graphs are to be made. Now these particular things are being done manually, but the Prometheus, it can take all these particular commands and can execute this particular command. It can cite a particular law, a particular convention. It can cite that particular convention. It can search for the precedents that had happened. For example, guys, I don't suppose I am a judge and I can't recall the Keshwananda Bharti case in one of a judgment. What I can do, I can ask this Primitia, I can ask the Primitia to cite that particular judgment back to me. Okay, so all these particular things can be done. It can do the deep internet searches also. It can do the deep internet searches as well. Then the next is the expert automation system. Now, if certain basic commands are given to this particular software, it can draft the judgments. It can draft the judgment. It can even provide the recommendation as how the judgment is to be carried to the judge. And therefore, a lot of time of the judges can be saved. Moreover, it is also based on to the no black box AI. No black box AI. So artificial intelligence that is being used, it is very much transparent, clear. It is very clearly telling that on what particular parameters a decision or a judgment has been given, and entire logic that is being used by the algorithms, it is traceable. So therefore, basically the tendencies that it might get abused, all such kind of a things is also very much less, is minimized. Then further moving on, thirdly, the machine learning has also been incorporated to improve the accuracy, and it also has reduced the time that is taken by this particular software to deliver judgments or to do deep searches or to execute any other command that has been given. Okay, now this particular software, it also has the inbuilt capabilities uh, that it can also learn. Okay, though more it needs to be ensured that it should learn with the coming time. Now it has been provided on the basis of the data that on the basis of the 3 lakh past judgment that has been given, Prometheus can predict a judgment in 20 seconds, and it has the accuracy rate of 96%. It is big, it's huge. So 96% accuracy rate and 20-second judgment time that is being taken. Right. Moreover, it can also create the multiple versions of a judgment which the judge has just to sign. Okay, so judge will just be sign, will be doing the review, and all other judgments can be processed by it. Moreover, it also, this particular Prometheus software, it operates onto it can operate on an entire range of code processes for filing, scheduling, verdict creation. Okay, citing the precedents, citing the past judgments, all on all the processes it can actually work. So this Prometheus software can actually be involved in certain processes. For example, tenancy disputes are there. Tenancy disputes, tax disputes, guardianship disputes. Okay, or largely basically the civil disputes that are there. In these particular kind of a processes, firstly, the Prometheus system can be used, and laterwards, this particular system can be used into the other processes as well. Is it clear or not? So this is something that can be done. Now, basically, the full scale porting of such software actually can help India significantly. I already told you that we have more nearly 5 crore cases are pending in India as per this particular article. So basically, where the judges basically we have the human shortcomings, or where the physical infrastructure is not there. Basically, in to plug up those particular gaps, the Prometheus software can be utilized. Is it clear or not? So therefore, it's very effective, and on the basis of this particular thing, India can also evolve a kind of a system. So what you can do, you can give this particular kind of a case study or example in judicial reforms, and these innovative kind of suggestions is very, they are very appreciated in UPSC as well. Okay, so that is all guys about this particular article, and with this we come to an end to the today's editorial analysis discussion. I hope that you have understood these analysis, these editorials, and actually here we are putting a lot of effort just to identify those editorials which are highly relevant for the exam and which are highly specific to our GS papers. Moreover, the idea is that basically they want, here we aim to build the opinion aspect. Here we try to build the opinion aspect in the aspirant. That is all about it. Okay, and before just signing off, let's take if there are certain doubts as well. Okay, what's the timing of this editorial? The timing is 7 p.m. in the evening. Sir, how to improve English? Because I am from Hindi medium background, but I want to give my exam in English. Please tell me how can I cover the English? Vaibhav, see, English is just a skill as speaking English language is just a skill as we have for other things. So only one thing that you should do is that use this, basically practice the skill more. More you speak in English, more you read English, more you interact in English, eventually you'll pick up. Fine. In India, very less people have English as a first language. Okay, others have learned, and as they can learn, you can also very easily learn. Just don't have a fear that I can't learn. Don't just equate that it is very difficult. No, it's very easy. You'll practice and eventually you'll be learning. Fine. So that is all for about today. Okay, Mint newspaper, Shubdeep, Mint newspaper are all the newspapers we see every day, but will not be including the newspaper just for the sake of formality. The newspapers will be included only if they have the relevant articles. Is it clear or not? So that is all about it. Okay, fine. So that is all, guys, about this particular discussion. I hope that you have understood it. So we'll now be meeting tomorrow at the same time, that is 7.